Hello and welcome to the Common Part B Optometry Rejections and Denials webinar. I am Mary Moko. I am a member of the WPS Provider Outreach and Education team, and I'll be your presenter today. Joining me is my friend and teammate Bailey Lawson, and she'll be assisting with some behind-the-scenes help. This webinar is for those people who are wishing to learn more about the most common reasons why WPS rejects Part B claims submitted by optometry specialists. Now, CMS does require that the Medicare administrative contractors, including others, not just WPS, provide education on the most common rejections and denials, and we do so to prevent future claim rejections and denials. So just as I advertised, the information that I'm presenting in this webinar today is based on actual WPS Part B claims data. Before I get started, though, I do need to cover a little bit of housekeeping. The presentation materials are available for download from our live events webpage. The webpage address is in the chat. You can take time now to download it if you've not already done so. We will record this session, and barring any technical difficulties, we will post the recording on our Encore Presentations webpage, where it will remain for about 60 to 90 days. The recording will also post on our YouTube channel, where it will remain as long as the information remains current or until we otherwise determine a need to remove it. Now, if you have any questions, please place them into the chat. I will answer questions as time permits. If I don't get to your question, I will email the response after the webinar, either directly to the learner, or I will prepare a list of questions and answers and share them via email to all webinar participants. If you have a question on a specific claim, one that is in processing or denied or otherwise sent to Medicare, I am unable to provide you with an answer. For claim-specific questions, you must contact customer service so they can access claim details in the claims processing system. Our team, Provider Outreach and Education, is not able to access actual claims history or claims information. Here is a disclaimer that we include in all our live events. This presentation is for educational purposes only. I made every effort to verify the information that I'm providing is accurate and current, but it is subject to change. It is on the CMS website, where you will find the Medicare rules that determine final coverage, and these are rulings that will always prevail. CMS prohibits recording of this presentation for profit-making purposes, and because we don't know how you might use the recording, we ask that you refrain from recording it altogether, and this does include taking any screenshots. We will create that Encore presentation, and you may use it for future reference. Based on the American Medical Association's copyright notice for CPT codes, descriptions, and other data, I am including this CPT copyright notice in my presentation materials and in this live presentation. Your continued participation in this presentation infers that you do agree to the terms of this copyright notice. Here's the agenda for today's webinar, and it should look very familiar because this is exactly what appeared in the webinar description on our website. Today, my goal is to share with you the most common rejections and denials for optometry claim submissions to Medicare. Now, this is not a deep dive into policy and coverage, but it is a look at the most common reasons for optometry claim rejections and denials based on that actual Part B WPS claims data. I'm going to reveal those reasons for common rejections and denials for this specialty based on the data, and I'm going to discuss how to fix and avoid both. And I think after seeing the data and the most common rejections and reasons, you'll agree with me that for most of those common rejections and denials, it's a really easy fix or something that's pretty straightforward in avoiding those denials in the future. I'm going to provide you with a lot of resources. This is a lot of information to share in 60 minutes. I'm going to be moving quickly through the slide deck, and I may actually ask you to review some of the information following this live presentation, mostly those resources that I've placed at the end of this live presentation. Now, if you do have any questions, please do place them into chat, and I'll get to them if I can, time permitting. Now, in order for me to discuss rejections and denials, I do need to provide a bit of information about the claims process itself. Based on a law that requires it, most providers submit claims electronically. Reports generate to confirm claim receipt at the contractor. And those reports actually report more specific information about some of the data requirements. Now, one of these reports is the 276-277 report. Our electronic data interchange, or EDI staff, has created the Medicare 276-277 companion guide, and they have done so to help submitters understand the claim requirements and know when they need to correct or resubmit the claim based on what we call pre-pass edits. Those are the edits set up to see if your claims are allowed to come into the claims processing system. Now, after the claims move past the pre-pass edits, they will generate a remittance notice, also referred to as the RA. Sometimes people call it the remit, others call it simply the notice. There are two formats, the electronic remittance advice, or the ERA, and the standard paper remittance, or the SPR. Now, most providers, with few exceptions, will receive the electronic remittance advice. And it is that remittance advice that provides important information to the provider about a rejected claim or a denied claim. For those claims that are actually adjudicated, you can find information listed on the bottom right side of this slide on that remittance advice, such as denials, information about missing items, refunds, and sometimes even offsets. A lot of information that is extremely important, and providers should be looking at those as their claims are processed or found to be unprocessable and rejected. Now, when looking at a remit, you will find various reason and remark codes. These can be an alphanumeric format or numeric format, and when claims pay differently than billed, a claim adjustment reason code is going to appear on that remittance notice. Sometimes a remittance advice remark code is going to also appear. Now, these remittance advice remark codes actually expand on the details that are described by the reason codes, and it does so to provide more details about the adjustment to the claim. Another type of code on the remittance advice is a group code. Group codes assign financial liability for any unpaid balance on the claim. If you are looking at a remittance advice and you see a CO group code, it stands for contractual obligation, and it means the provider is liable and cannot bill their patient. A PR group code means that the patient is financially responsible. Now, WPS hears a lot of comments about these codes, many during conversations that our customer service representatives are having with providers and their staff. Providers often state that these codes are too cryptic or that they contain outdated acronyms or information. While WPS would really like to help, it is another contractor, not WPS, who maintains these codes for CMS. You can find the link to the code lists on their website. The name of that company is Washington Publishing Company. It is on their website where you can find contact information should you wish to suggest a change to any of the code lists, including those code explanations. You can also find the link to the code lists themselves on the Washington Publishing Company's website. You'll notice throughout your presentation materials that I have embedded the links to all of those websites and the resources that I've mentioned during today's presentation. This slide is inserted so that you can see a side-by-side comparison, that is, of a rejection as opposed to a denial. They are very, very different. And I think that a lot of us, myself included, I catch myself doing this a lot, and then I have to correct myself. There is a big difference between a rejection and a denial, and we should not be using these interchangeably. Let's talk about rejections first. Rejections are unprocessable. That's what CMS calls them. They are actually returned on the front end. They are never actually adjudicated. The reason a claim is rejected or a claim line is rejected is because something's illogical. It doesn't make sense. Could be to missing or incorrect information. Because that claim or claim line that is rejected is not adjudicated, there are no appeal rights. What you need to do is resubmit the service, fix it, and resubmit it. On the remittance advice for a rejected claim or one that is deemed as unprocessable, you will see the MA130 and the CO16 code. And remember, those are the codes that I talked about that are maintained by the Washington Publishing Company. A rejected claim is one where the patient is not liable. You can't bill the patient for those services. A denied claim, on the other hand, is actually adjudicated, and Medicare will deny a claim line or a claim because the claim fails to meet payment criteria, or the claim line, that is. It could be due to a law or statutory requirement. Perhaps it is denied because of medical necessity. That particular item or service doesn't meet Medicare's criteria for payment. Remember that any frequency audits or edits, any utilization parameters would fall into that category of medical necessity. Another common reason for denials is eligibility, both on the provider side and on the beneficiary side. It could be that the beneficiary was not yet eligible for Medicare, or it could be that the provider's eligibility terminated and can no longer bill a service on a date of service submitted on a claim. So these are just a few of the examples of failing to meet payment criteria. For denied services, most often, with few exceptions, you will see the MA01 code on the remittance advice. And when you see that code, the message that goes along with that code actually provides appeal rights. For denied services, the patient liability is determined. During the next few slides, I'm going to discuss whether you'll need to correct or appeal the claim, a denial. After reviewing the remittance advice, you're going to need to choose your action. For an unprocessable or rejected claim, you're going to need to fix the error and resubmit that claim to Medicare. Now, if the claim or claim line denied, there may be multiple actions that you can choose from. You may be able to simply resubmit the service. You might be able to use the clerical error reopening or CER process to fix a clerical error. And CMS defines these as human or mechanical errors on the part of the provider or the contractor. This would include minor errors or omissions. Another action to consider for a denied service is an appeal. The remittance advice will provide appeal rights, and I will be discussing appeals in a little bit more detail later in this webinar. Now, registered users of our SecureNet Access portal, which is the secure side of our website, can render or request a clerical error reopening or render an appeal. And this is just one of those self-service tools that really does offer the most efficiencies. We do have a portal user manual that provides illustrations and step-by-step instructions on how to use these portal features, and I've included the link to that resource in your presentation materials. There's a couple places on every single page of our website where you can find the link to that portal user manual because many of our providers are registered users. I do want to show you where to find that. This is the, I apologize, trying to make it a little bigger here. This is the homepage of the WPS website, and near the top of the page is a blue box where registered users of SNAP or SecureNet Access Portal can, you can actually use it to register and once registered, you can use it to log into that secure portal. But right here, within that big blue box near the top of our website is a link to the portal user manual. This is on our home page and on every single page of our website. You can also find a link to the portal user manual way at the bottom under the heading Educational Opportunities in that big blue box that's up at the bottom of all of our web pages. So just a quick, easy way to get to that portal user manual. I mentioned to you that I'd be covering appeals. Now, I can't cover appeals in depth, but I do think it's important to include it in this presentation about common rejections and denials, because it is one of the actions you can take if a service is denied. For claim denials, most often, not always, you can request an appeal. The remittance advice will tell you your appeal rights. The purpose of the appeals process, of course, is to ensure the correct adjudication of claims. There are 5 levels of appeal. There is only one level of appeal that is performed at the MAC, the Medicare Administrative Contractor. Jurisdiction 5 and Jurisdiction 8 MAC is WPS. So the only level of appeal that we do at WPS is the level 1 appeal called the redetermination. Physicians, suppliers, and beneficiaries have the right to appeal claim determinations made by the MACs. The beneficiary or the representative can request an appeal on any service processed for them. Providers and suppliers may appeal services on which they accepted assignment. However, for unassigned claims, the provider or supplier can act as the beneficiary's representative, but only if that beneficiary signs an authorization statement. Providers and suppliers can also request a redetermination on an unassigned claim if Medicare denied that service as not reasonable and necessary, or in those cases where the provider or supplier billed in excess of the limiting charge. The first level of appeal, as mentioned, is redetermination. It's the only one rendered by the MAC. Time frames apply to each of all 5 levels when submitting an appeal request. Additionally, there is a minimum amount in controversy, that's a dollar threshold, that applies to levels 3 and 5. I've included those at the bottom of this slide. You can combine like denials on more than one claim in order to reach that amount in controversy. And that level 3 is the administrative law judge hearing, and level 5 is federal court review. I've included a couple of resources for you that pertain to appeals. Of course, out on our YouTube channel, we have some recordings that go into depth, the appeals process, but how to appeal a claim determination is linked here on this slide, or the link is embedded. That takes you to a resource on the WPS website that includes everything you need to know about the 5 levels of the process, the time frames, the amounts in controversy, and it gives you the ways you can submit your appeal request to WPS, that level 1 appeal being the redetermination. What I've included on this slide on the right hand side in your handout is a graphic of a website that I want to show you. I'm going to open that up. It is one of my favorite CMS publications, or resources I should call it. I'm pulling it over here and making it bigger. Today's webinar was advertised as Part B, Common Rejections and Denials. So I'm going to be talking about the standard process for original Medicare fee-for-service appeals. This shows you the initial determination, that's the initial claim being processed by your MAC, and then it shows you all 5 levels of appeal. I mentioned to you the redetermination is the first level of appeal done at the MAC. The second level of appeal is the reconsideration done by the qualified independent contractor. I talked about level 3, that being the Office of Medicare Appeals and Hearings. And level 4 is the Medicare Appeals Council, and level 5 appeal is Federal District Court. And of course, I mentioned to you those amounts in controversy for level 3 and level 5. And I just want to point out that this flow chart, I was struggling for the word there, I apologize. This flow chart shows you those amounts for that amount in controversy for level 3 and 5. The level 3 amount in controversy is greater than or equal to $190. And remember, you can combine claims in order to get to that amount. And the level 5 amount in controversy is $1,900, greater than or equal to $1,900. Again, you can combine claims. What I want to caution you about is the fact that this chart does reflect amounts for calendar years. So at the end of this year, CMS is going to be publishing a new flow chart. Make certain that you're looking at the bottom of this flow chart if you're using it, because it will tell you the calendar year for which it is valid. The amounts in controversy can change from year to year, and they often do change from year to year. Okay, so again, just really helpful flow chart. I like it because it shows me how many days you have to file the level of appeal, and then it also shows you how many days the contractor has to render that decision or send you that decision notification of the appeal decision. You know, was it overturned? Was there a partial favorable decision? Was it fully favorable? So on and so forth. But the contractors also have time limits to finish their reviews and get that notice off to you. So that's a little bit about the appeals process. Now we move to the data dashboard. The next portion of my presentation is going to focus on that data, just as I advertised. I used a tool that we call the data dashboard in order to pull the data that I plan to share with you. And this data dashboard is an interactive tool. It was designed by our data analysts in a department at WPS called Insight. That's our data unit. They are responsible for creating these tools so that people like Bailey and myself can use them when we're preparing education. We can analyze the information, the data, to see if there's a need for education. We need to fulfill that requirement that we have based on the directive by CMS that we are educating providers on those most common rejections and denials, and of course the other ones too. The Insight team is also responsible for other tasks and responsibilities. I want to show you what that tool looks like. I'm just getting it ready here so I can pull it over for you. I had it ready, but coming at you in just a minute. I apologize. Here it is. Getting it ready and pulling it over. Thanks for your patience. Sometimes I click and it just takes a while to open. So this is what that data dashboard looks like. This is what I used to compile this data that I'm presenting to you today. I mentioned to you that this is an interactive tool. With the click of a button, these are actually called data slicers, each of these green boxes. I can change the data slicer or the filter so that I can view the data that I want. In this case, we show jurisdiction. WPS is the MAC for jurisdiction 5 and jurisdiction 8. I can look at Part B claims. I can look at Part A claims. I can look at Part A and B claims. I can look at denied claims. I can choose to look instead at unprocessable claims. Here in the next data slicer, I'm going to show denied here. In the next data slicer is claim type. Today, we are looking at specialty 41 claims for optometry. But I just want to show you real quick. I mentioned to you that this is interactive. With the click of the button, we can change this information. This shows you all claims specialty types. So this shows you for jurisdiction 5 and 8, the dates of service are the submission dates up here, April 1 through June. Data last refreshed on July 14th. The top denied service code 92015 was 143,503 denials. Claim line denials or claims we are looking at here. We can drill down to state, so I can enter any of our states. I can choose to drill down by county, and I often do when I do a partner presentation in a city in Michigan, for example. When I drill down this data, sometimes I like to look at the counties that surround that city that I'm at. or where that group is located so that I get their local claims data. We're paring it down. I can choose to look by a certain CPT code. Let me just show you this one. I just chose 99213. Let's see how many times that code denied in 3 months, 74,507. Here are the reasons. And so on and so forth. So I used this, or I manipulated this, used the data slicers, if you will, in order to look at data. So let's look at just what it was that I looked at. Let's move on in the presentation. There's different ways to look at that. I showed you them. We can, in an instant, with the click of your mouse, view rejections or denials. We can drill down by state, by county. We can look at the reason why claims rejected or denied. We can look at the code. We can even look at specialty. We use this dashboard also to view trending. Let me pull that over to you here. I'm going to look at trending and show you that we can look at the current claim count for 3 months, what it was the prior 3 months, the difference in claims, the claims percentage change, and then this arrow shows up or down. Analyzing this kind of data helps us determine what it is that we need to provide education on. Okay? And that is why I'm doing this particular presentation today. It's not a deep dive into policy for optometry. What I had in the description for this webinar when I advertised it was that we were going to look at the data. That's what we're doing today. So I looked at jurisdictions 5 and 8. I chose optometry. The claim submission dates, when I pulled this data, it wasn't April through June data, it was March through May. The data was last refreshed on June 10th, and I did so because I needed to prepare the education in my program, and I needed also to be able to get that PowerPoint through our review and approval process. So here then, based on the data that I analyzed, is the most common reasons for Specialty 41 claim rejections. Now, you might be wondering, what does Specialty 41 mean? For those of you wondering, it is a code assigned to WPS providers when they enroll with WPS for Medicare. During enrollment, most providers, not all of them, will self-designate. They choose and report to us their primary specialty. While they can designate a secondary specialty, it's only that primary specialty, the one designated, that is used during initial claim processing. So here are Specialty 41, which represents optometry. CMS maintains the list of specialty codes. These are the reasons why your claim's denied. The number one reason, rejected. Here I caught myself. The reasons claim rejected, and then the number of claim lines for that 3-month period that I told you I analyzed data for. Claim must be submitted to the DMERC. That's an old acronym. It stands for Durable Medical Equipment Regional Contractor. We now call that same entity a DME MAC. 2,572 claims were rejected by WPS because that claim should not have came to us. It should have went to the DME MAC. Second most common rejection reason, 1,119 rejections in 3 months, is that the claim came to WPS, but it should have instead been submitted to the Railroad Retirement Board. That means that that particular beneficiary is a retiree of the railroad, and it is another contractor, not WPS, it's Palmetto, GBA, that processes claims for retirees of the railroad. They are the Railroad Retirement Board specialty contractor. Third most common reason, missing, incomplete, or invalid ordering primary identifier. That means on that claim where you need to enter the primary identifier, maybe it was missing altogether, maybe you entered a part of that number or that identifier, maybe it was invalid altogether. CMS does maintain a referring and ordering search page on their website. It's a database that you can search by provider name to see if that particular provider is eligible to refer or order services for Medicare patients or beneficiaries. I did include that resource in the list of resources at the end of the presentation, but when you use this searchable database, You can search by provider name and it will give you the national provider identifiers, so you can make certain that you have that information and you're entering it correctly on the claim. Next common reason for rejection is that the rendering physician number, not the ordering provider identifier, but the rendering physician number entered was invalid or missing from the claim, 751. Invalid or missing modifier, 322. We have modifier fact sheets available on our website. I'm going to pull the website back over here quickly. And I am a searcher, not a navigator, so I search a lot. You'll see I entered modifier in the search box, and the #1 result that comes up is our modifiers webpage. I'm going to click on that and then scroll down to show you that we have modifier fact sheets available for most modifiers that are available for Part B. I'm going to open one, the modifier 25 fact sheet, to show you what they look like if you've not seen these before. The fact sheets all include the definition. Most of them include appropriate use. Most of them include inappropriate use. Some of them will include information like this: the following statements are false. Most of them will include procedure codes. In other words, these procedure codes are the only codes for which you can append this modifier. Okay, so that will help you determine correct use of modifiers or when you need to use one. Next reason for rejection is CLIA number is invalid or missing. This pertains to the Clinical Laboratory Improvements Act that requires that for certain lab procedures, if you're rendering them, you need to get certified. And when billing those to Medicare, you need to add your certification number to the claim when you're billing those particular lab services. So if that number is missing on a claim that includes a laboratory code, if it's invalid or missing, there's going to be a rejection. 274 of them. I've included the resource that you need to read in order to know how to go about getting certified and know where to put that on your claim if you're billing those lab services that need to be CLIA certified. The next reason for rejections is no submitted billed charges. So the claim came to WPS, but there was no dollar amount, no charges billed. Next, Field 11 of the HCFA, that's an old acronym. It is now CMS. I included these old acronyms on purpose in this presentation because this is the way the information, those reasons for denial, print out when I use that data dashboard that I showed you earlier. 188 times we rejected a claim because Field 11 was not filled in. Field 11 of the CMS 1500, it used to be the HCFA 1500, asks the provider, is there insurance that is primary to Medicare? Now that says Field 11. There is a tool available that a lot of people don't know about, so I like to share that during this presentation. If you go to the WPS website on our homepage, and I've included a direct link to this later on in your presentation, under Quick Links, you'll see EDI, which stands for Electronic Data Interchange. Choose that. You actually leave the WPS website and go to our Electronic Data Interchange website. Okay. You have a choice to look at Medicare EDI. We have our commercial insurance. We also have TRICARE contract. So you want to look at Medicare EDI, and I've included the direct link so you don't need to navigate like I'm doing now. But in case you need to find it or want to navigate it, do it. I'm just giving you a little tutorial here. Here's where you can find those companion guides I talked about earlier. Remember I said that the 276 and 277 companion guide will help you with those claims elements or claim requirements when submitting claims to us electronically. Here's the crosswalk that I'm talking about now, the 1500 to the 837 5010 crosswalk. I want to show you that. Remember I just talked about the information in item 11 was missing. That means if you look to this crosswalk where it talks about item 11, it tells you what the information is in there. Remember that this is the information whether if there's insurance primary to Medicare, you need to let Medicare know, yes or no, there is. You can't leave that blank. You have to fill it in. If there's no insurance primary to Medicare, you have to enter none. Let's take a look at item number 21 on a paper claim form. Well, what is that? It's the diagnosis or nature of injury. On the 5010 or the electronic version, this is where that information is located, and this is what it is you need to place into there. The data element description of what it is you need to place on the field. 2300 is the loop of the electronic claim. Over in the right-hand column, there's requirements for the electronic claim. And this one says that in item 21 or the electronic equivalent, which is here, you need to enter the diagnosis. Provide you with additional information. Now, you need to enter at least one, so you'll see an R listed here followed by S many times. Well, what does an R versus an S mean? In that status column, it's at the bottom of the page. An R means it's a required data element for the claim, and an S means that it's situational. It must be completed if other conditions exist. Now, what this means is that for anything out here that has an R that is missing on a claim, it's going to be rejected because the information isn't there that's required on the claim. There's also claim form instructions located in CMS's Internet-only manual, and I've included links to them as well. So field 11 has to be completed, 188 rejections. Incomplete, invalid plan information for other insurance. So this is a situation where we have rejected claims or claim lines because you told us there was another plan, but you didn't give us the information required to identify the other plan, or it was incomplete, or it was invalid. So again, just things missing from the claim. The top rejected code for optometry specialists, Part B claims to Medicare. These are in descending order. The top code for rejections was 92014, and that, of course, is the comprehensive ophthalmological service for an established patient. The number one reason we rejected claims for that code is that it shouldn't have been submitted to us. It should have been submitted to Railroad Board. The number two reason was because the rendering physician number on that claim was invalid or missing. And the number three reason was the claim number is missing or was not entered. I mentioned to you earlier that both rejections and denials, and you're going to see this as I go through these reasons, they're pretty straightforward reasons for why Medicare or WPS rejected those claims or denied them. Meaning that the action to be taken is pretty straightforward. It's easy to figure out. If you don't know how to fix or correct a claim, you can call customer service. They'll help explain that rejection or denial to you, and they will give you the options that you can consider to fix or appeal the claim. 92015, of course, is a refractive state. Again, claim was rejected because we start reading a claim, or the claims processing system looks at item number 1 first, item number 2, item number 3. It goes down all the way through all 32 items on the claim or what have you. If something's missing in 16, boom, it's going to stop and reject. If you get a rejection notice on that remittance advice, make sure you're looking over the entire claim, because you don't want that claim to come back in and then get to item 24 and have something missing there also, causing the claim to reject again. Okay, so look over the entire claim. That's just kind of a good little tip to remember. Number 1 reason, claim is must be submitted to the Railroad Board. Number 2 reason, the health insurance claim number and the name do not match. The name on that Medicare card has to match exactly with the name on the claim. And next is invalid or incorrect diagnosis code. These are rejections, remember, not denials. 92250 is the diagnostic procedure notice fundus photography. Again, claim must be submitted to the Railroad Retirement Board, rendering physician number invalid. And for this one, invalid or missing modifier. Okay. So look to that service, consider whether the modifier that you did use was valid or not, or whether it was missing and should have been needed, or was actually required. 99213 is that established patient office or other outpatient visit, rendering physician number invalid. Again, claim must be submitted to the Railroad Board, and that health insurance claim number and the name on the claim do not match. 99214, another office visit code. You can see some of the rejections there are those that we've already talked about, nothing new. Followed by 92134, which is scanning computerized ophthalmic diagnostic imaging. Again, here are reasons for rejections that we've already talked about. Common rejections, common reasons for rejections. If we can fix those or avoid those, think of how many less claims we'd be rejecting. Think of how many less claims you'd need to prepare and resubmit, okay? Saves everyone money, saves the provider money, saves Medicare money also, the trust fund. Here's a trending example that I pulled for you, Specialty 41 for optometry. Place of service conflicts with procedure code. That means that the procedure code reported on the claim, that 2-digit procedure code, does not jive with that CPT code you billed. So let me give you an example. Let's say that there is a complex surgery, a complex eye surgery being billed on the claim, but the place of service code was 11, which represents office. That doesn't make sense to the computer logic. Current 3 months, 38 claims. The prior 3 months, 6 claims. That's a difference of 32. There's a 533% increase in those 3 months for this rejection. Do we need to educate on it, or do we not need to educate on it? That is the considerations we take into consider. That is a consideration we make. So that's why I'm providing this education today, to let all of you know. Okay, we talked about rejections. Let's move on and talk about denials. Specialty 41 and the number of claim lines. Procedure code submitted is a non-covered service, 99,458. Now that might seem a lot and might seem alarming, but let's remember one of the codes most often billed by your specialty is a refraction, and that's rejected. So sometimes while things might look, wow, look at all those denials, we have to analyze the data to make certain that there's not a reason for those denials happening. And in this case, we know it's a refraction. It's not covered by Medicare. Many providers, even though they don't have to, will submit that cost or that service on a Medicare claim, and it should deny. Okay. It was also rejected. It showed up in rejections as well because information was missing on the claim that was needed. Collection of fee-for-service during periods of managed care. This is one of those situations and a good example, I think, of what we often hear from providers about. This is a little cryptic. What this means, and I did have to verify it with some of our systems staff because I wasn't certain, but I had an inkling. What this boils down to is that Medicare beneficiary is not a fee-for-service beneficiary. It's a Medicare managed care beneficiary, which means that that beneficiary has elected Medicare Part C, Medicare Advantage. So we denied this. Not covered when performed, referred, or ordered by this provider. This was similar to a rejection that we talked about earlier where the information was missing from the claim. In this case, Medicare denies this claim line because the service isn't covered when performed, referred, or ordered by this particular provider. So it might be something that's outside scope of practice. It might just be something that is not allowed by Medicare when performed, referred, or ordered by an optometrist. Medicare does not pay for this service or item. This could mean the service was statutorily excluded from Medicare, $2,490. Incorrect billing, split post-op care. And this is something that during registration, a couple of you submitted as, what question is it, or what is it that you want answered or discussed during this presentation? And this particular webinar wasn't really advertised to talk about or to go into depth to talk about billing split post-op care. But it does indeed affect the number of denials that we're seeing for optometry claims. So in addition to our modifier fact sheets, 4 modifiers, 54 and 55, we do have a YouTube video that explains use and reporting of these modifiers. That's that post-op care. The video includes how to report surgery only with no follow-up care by the surgeon, surgery when post-op care is relinquished by the surgeon to another provider, And surgery when the surgeon provides some post-op care before relinquishing care to another provider. So you can find that Encore out in our on our YouTube channel. The title of it is Encore Global Surgery Billing. A little bit later on in this presentation, when I talk about the code that's being denied for billing split post-op care, I'm going to have Bailey place the link to that into the chat, but that's just in a couple more slides ahead. I'll have her do that. More reasons for denial. Remember, these are in descending order. Duplicate charge of claim, and what you will see on the remit is the actual ICN there that's now being processed. That means there's two claims within the claims processing system, same time with a duplicate charge on it. 1,954 claim lines. I have been in Medicare a long time, more than 40 years, and for more than 40 years, duplicate claims have been problematic. We have educated on this, we've hosted webinars and such, but it is just one of those denials that we continue to provide education about. We have a resource on our website. It's included in your the list of resources at the end of your presentation materials. We have this information on our website that talks about maybe you need to consider appending a modifier to tell Medicare that this really isn't a duplicate, you know, that I really did do it on 2 different eyes, so on and so forth. Or I really did do this procedure twice in one day, or I did it and another provider did it during the same day. There's modifiers you can use to avoid denials if the service really isn't truly a duplicate denial. So something to consider is to take a look at that. Now, another thing to consider is, do you use a billing service, or do you within your office or organization bill on a cycle? Do you submit claims every 30 days? If so, what you need to be doing is determining the status of that particular item or service. Has Medicare processed it yet? Have you submitted it to Medicare? Don't just submit a new claim. If your billing service is doing that, ask them to stop. It is considered abusive. Next reason for denial is that the claim must be sent to the employer group health plan first. That means Medicare is not primary. You need to send that claim first to the employer group health plan. 1,500, over 1,500 denials. Payment included in another service received on the same day. 1,252 denials. You know, did you miss adding a modifier to tell us that it was someone else that did the service? Is it truly a bundling of sorts? Look to the National Correct Coding Initiative procedure to procedure edits to see if the service can be, or a modifier can be appended based on your documentation, of course, in order to unbundle that service. A number of things you can look at. Another thing you can do with this one is take a look at your relative value file. If there is a B in the status code column with that CPT code or HCPCS code you're billing, that means that payment for that item or service is bundled. It will never pay separately. If it's B, it means it's bundled, always bundled, never going to pay no matter what, even if you add a modifier. So things to consider looking at there to avoid these, or to bill them correctly so you receive payment when payment is appropriate. Another reason for denial, these services are denied because the patient is in a hospice. When a patient elects hospice coverage, all of the care related to the terminal diagnosis is included in their hospice care. So it's not separately billable, and it's denied when it's not billed with an appropriate modifier that tells us, hey, Medicare, this is not connected to the terminal diagnosis and should be billed. Or, hey, Medicare, this is the attending physician service. You need to pay this separately. This case is optometry, so typically it's not going to be that the optometrist is the attending, but there are situations where you can append a modifier and we can pay separately for those services. No modifier, the claims processing system is not going to recognize that, and the service is going to be denied because the patient is in hospice. Let's take a look at the top rejected codes. No big surprise, this first one. That's the refraction 92015. Procedure code submitted as a non-covered service. Medicare does not pay for this item or service. These are the reasons why these codes were rejected. And we would expect to see this because we know that your specialty bills for this service in addition to a medically necessary and covered service. So again, when we analyze the data, we wouldn't be too concerned about seeing this one hit as the top denial. 92014, of course, is that comprehensive eye exam. Collection of fee for service during periods of managed care is the #1 reason that code denied. Not covered when performed, referred, or ordered by this provider. Duplicate, and the claim must be sent to the primary insurance first. 92250 is that fundus photography. Why is Medicare Part B I caught myself denying that? It's because the patient is managed care. The claim shouldn't come to WPS. It needs to go to Part C plan. Not covered when performed, referred, or ordered by this provider. And then bundling. Payment is included in another service received on the same day. 66984 is the code that represents the extracapsular cataract removal with the insertion of an intraocular lens prosthesis. And this is where that modifier 54 and 55 is going to come into play, because the #1 reason why we are denying that code for your specialty is the incorrect billing of split post-op care. This is what some of you were asking about, and this is exactly that particular recording that I mentioned to you, and I am going to have Bailey place the link to that Encore presentation that's out on our YouTube channel into the chat, so you can see where to find this information, because one of my former colleagues, she's not with WPS anymore, she retired, does a really great job explaining exactly how you need to report services when you are doing surgery only, or you're not doing that post-op care. You're going to split the post-op care perhaps because care was relinquished by the surgeon and assumed by another provider. What do you need to put where on that claim? That particular recording is going to tell you that. There are some good examples in that recording. So if you are one of those 2 or 3 people that when you registered said, this is the takeaway you want from this webinar, that's where you need to go to find it. We don't even have time to touch on that in our 60 minutes today, because we're covering all of these other reasons and rejections as well. And you know, here's a good place I can put a plug in for our survey that we ask you to complete at the end of the presentation. If you want a refresh on that, you want us to consider a live webinar on billing split post-op care or 54 and 55 modifiers, tell us that when you complete that survey. We'll include the links to the survey later in this in the chat. That survey is one which you can use to suggest topics for future education. Sometimes I like to call it a wish list. Send us your wish list. What do you want to hear about? Something we can delve into in a 60-minute webinar perhaps. This also lets you provide us with information about other types of things you'd like to see, like changes to our website and so on and so forth. We take that survey seriously, and we can't wait to hear from you. I'm looking forward to seeing your comments and your feedback on this presentation today as well. Collection of fee for service during periods of managed care. That means don't send the claim to WPS. It needs to go to the managed care plan. And Medicare does not pay for this service by this provider. All right. One more code, the 92004, which is comprehensive eye exam new patient. Again, that patient is a managed care patient. We can only pay 1 initial visit per specialty. So if 2 different optometrists were billing this code or submitting this code to Medicare, that first claim will come in. If it's a new patient, hasn't been seen in 3 years, it's going to go through the system and pay. But what happens when that next claim for an initial visit comes along? It's going to deny, and that's one of the denials we see here. Ways to avoid this, you know, ask your patient, have you seen anyone else? Have you had an eye exam from someone else? So on and so forth. I know that sometimes it's difficult to get that correct information from the patient, but do the best to avoid this type of denial. Not covered when performed, referred, or ordered by this provider is the next reason why we deny this code. Here is a training example for denials, and I do want to spend a couple minutes on this. Time limit for filing your claim is expired. This is one of those exceptions, folks, that I mentioned earlier. Most claims have appeal rights. Some of them don't. If a claim or claim line denied for time filing limit, there is no appeal right. You can't appeal it. What you can do is you can submit a request to reopen a claim, a waiver, that we grant you a waiver, that is. But I want to show you 509 claims the current 3 months, only 287 the prior. There's a difference of 222. That's quite a jump. And we've noticed quite a jump for this denial when looking at data for other specialties as well. I do want to point out to you that out on our website, I'm bringing it over, we do have an article. I'm just going to key timely into the search and look what comes up first, because I show a lot of people this site when I'm doing these webinars. Timely filing of claims. This talks about that the patient's what the patient is responsible for on claims denied for timely filing. You can only hold them responsible for 20% of what would have been our approved amount if you've filed their claim not timely. Claims filed do not have appeal rights. We talked about that. This tells you how you can send WPS a request to waive the timely filing limit. Tells you what you need to do, where you need to send it. I'm on the J8 website right now, so that's why you see Indiana and Michigan. But if you're a J5 provider, you can quickly jump to J5 MAC Part B just by clicking up here in this ribbon, so that now you will see the addresses for J5 Part B. What I want to point out is this, because we get a lot of questions about denied claims that are not filed within time limits due to third-party error. And this tells you that we get a lot of questions asking to reopen claims that were denied when another insurance recoups their previous payment. And that is the reason that caused delay in you submitting the claim to Medicare. We tell you here that in CMS's internet-only manual, and we've linked to it, CMS says this: third-party payer error in making a primary payment determination does not constitute good cause for the purpose of reopening that initial determination or redetermination when we process the claim in accordance with the information that was on the claim. What this means, folks, is that if another insurance comes back to you 3 years from now and says, hey, we paid as primary and Medicare was primary, give us our money back, this tells you that CMS does not consider that a reason to waive the timely filing and reopen the claim. We get a lot of requests for that. So just an FYI, one of my colleagues has been hosting webinars on this topic quite a bit lately. All right, I need to move on and move on quickly. This is the part, oops, sorry. I moved too fast. This is the part, this really kind of reiterates much of what I've already talked about already. This is how you fix modifier issues. I talked about those fact sheets. Make sure you're adding it correctly to your claim. Make sure it's valid on the date of service you billed. Eligibility fixes. Make sure that patient name and their MBI match exactly on the claim. Make sure you're submitting that claim to the correct payer. We talked about Railroad Board, so on and so forth. We also see Part C. Medicare Part C plans, and also those claims where they're retired co-workers, and you should be submitting claims to the United Mine Workers of America. Provider number fixes. Make certain there's no keying errors. Make certain that ordering provider information was entered correctly and that you're filling out your claim form appropriately. All of that information is where it needs to be. This tells you how you can avoid duplicate denials. Don't auto resubmit that cycle, billing on a cycle. Make sure you're billing an appropriate modifier that was valid for the date of service, and so on and so forth. Use those forms. This is a link to that resource on our website that talks about patients who have elected hospice. What Medicare can pay for and what Medicare doesn't pay for separately, how you can bill it and receive payment for it. I'm going to pause just for a minute here. We had some situations where there was another insurance primary to Medicare. That's called Medicare secondary payer situation. So I've included all of these wonderful resources for you. We talked about bundling edits, National Correct Coding Initiative edits. So I included all of those for you, those resources. Even more, I know there's a lot of them. This is the part where I told you that I'm going to ask you to come back and look at later. Here are the requirements for claims, both electronic claim, also EDI requirements I wanted you to have, and also the paper claim form. And remember, there's that crosswalk that will show you if it goes here on a paper claim, where does it go on an electronic claim. We have the IVR, that's where you use voice or telephone keypad to get status and details about your claim. I've linked to the operating guide so you know how to use it. Here again is just a reiteration of what I talked about earlier. You can use the SecureNet Access Portal. That tool allows you to check eligibility for your beneficiaries. It's going to allow you to check claim status and claim details, and it even provides some claim actions on there. If you go to the detail for a claim line, you can see or you can click on a button that says more info, and it will actually open up additional resources for you. So let me give you an example. If your claim line denied based on a policy, it'll allow you to click on and open that policy when you're within that SecureNet Access Portal. Great tool. Here's a resource. I talked to you about reason and remark codes. If your claim rejected and you go to this resource on our website, you will find reason and remark codes. If those are the reasons your claim rejected, it tells you how to fix it. Similarly, claim or common claim denials on our website also shows those reason and remark codes. If your claim denied for those appear on your EOB or MSN, rather, not meant MSN, but the remittance, there you go, I got the right word that time. That tells you what you need to do in order to avoid that denial, what you might want to consider for requesting an appeal. Here are other resources. This one tells you how to request those clerical error reopenings, so you can fix those rejections yourself if you're using the SecureNet Access Portal. Modifiers web pages here, timely filings I showed you, the article on hospice. I talked about, whoops, I scrolled too far, CLIA, those clinical lab rejections because you didn't put the certification number on your claim. That's here in this resource. This is education in the future, where you can find recordings, our place of service code list. Remember, procedure code, not logical for the place of service indicated. There's global surgery coding and billing, which includes that post-op split care. Our YouTube channel has a lot of great recordings on it. EDI webpage, here's that crosswalk I showed you. Resources, checking eligibility. We have also a CMS contractor directory. If you click here, it opens up a map of the U.S. Click on your state and you will see which contractors to send your claims to. The relative value files is that file that I mentioned when I talked about bundling. The status code column will have a B if it's a bundled, always bundled service. Here are those ordering and referring files that show you all of the providers who are eligible to order and refer services for Medicare patients. It includes their national provider identifier. Global surgery booklet, 55 modifier. Evaluation and management services guide. I know that those E&M codes showed up a bit. Also, durable medical equipment, prosthetic devices, orthotics and supplies, DME. This particular page includes links to lists of which codes go to WPS and which codes go to the DME MAC. This is where we would have you ask your questions, but we are running late, so I'm going to promise you that anything you've placed into the chat, I will respond to, and I will also tell you about a way that you can submit questions for up to 7 days following this event. This is here because we want to let you know how important those survey comments are. These are just a couple of changes that Provider Outreach and Education made because of survey comments. We've added chapters to YouTube, so you can look at a YouTube video and you don't have to listen to the whole thing to find out that the particular item or service you wanted to hear about was at the 35-minute mark. We actually have what looks like chapters or a table of contents that says where you'll find what during that recording. You can jump around between different topics within the recording. We've also added training indicators to the descriptions for our webinars so that when you register, you'll recognize whether that particular event is one that would be including information that pertains to your job function, for example. Some of you are looking for continuing education units. We don't provide those, but following this webinar today, those of you who did not listen by phone, those of you that listened by computer or actually viewed this presentation will receive a follow-up thank you email from WebEx. There is no attachment that is your certificate of achievement, but within the verbiage itself, it will include what's over here in the left side bottom, certificate of achievement. It's got that red square around it, or rectangle. It'll tell this certifies you completed this webinar. It'll have the name of this webinar, today's date, and it'll show 1 hour. It is that email that you need to forward to an accrediting body and ask them if they will give you CEUs for our education. Now, if you listen by telephone only, you will not receive an email because we don't know your email address. You'll listen by phone. What you need to do is send an email to the email address shown here at the bottom left side of this slide. Bailey's placing it also into the chat. Send us your name, the telephone number you called in from, the name of this event, and today's date, and we will manually give you a certificate of achievement, and that will be an attachment. It won't be within the body of an email itself. Here again is that email address to which you can send your request for that certificate if you listen by phone. Okay. Otherwise, look for that email. It might go to your junk or your spam folder because it's going to be coming from WebEx. I mentioned to you, I promise to answer your follow-up questions. Here is just another way following today's webinar, when that chat has gone away, where you can, for a period of up to 7 days, send your questions to me. Include today's topic in the subject line so that the staff that is monitoring our mailbox knows to send that to me, Mary Moko. If you have claim-specific questions about a rejection or a denial, you need to go to customer service so they can look at the claims history and see what happened. Now, back to that survey. I mentioned this earlier. It is so very important that we hear from you. Let us know what you think. Please take time to complete the survey now. The survey link is in the chat. And it's so important that we hear from you. We get your ideas, your suggestions. That important wish list could be related to optometry, could be something totally different. You will have one chance when you exit today's webinar. You're going to see a pop-up box that looks like what you see at the bottom middle of your screen. Has the yellow triangle at the top and the blue button. If you have not yet completed the survey, click on that blue button. It gives you a chance to do it right then and there. Thank you so very much. On behalf of Bailey and myself, I do want to thank you for attending. We appreciate everything you do. You're taking time today to come to this presentation. We do look forward to having you at future events, and we are looking forward to those survey comments. Thanks, everyone. You can disconnect now.